always thought silence was the absence of sound. I was wrong. Silence is just a canvas, and tonight something is painting on it. I turned off the master speakers 5 minutes ago. I pulled the plug from the wall, but the voice is still coming through the monitors, and it's counting down.
The station sits at the dead end of a dirt road in the high desert of Nevada, an auxiliary listening post for deep space radio bursts. It's a graveyard for noise. My job, officially, is signal maintenance. In reality, I'm a glorified janitor for servers that hum in the dark, listening to the static of the universe. It's a solo shift. The nearest human being is 40 miles away in a gas station that closes at dusk. The isolation usually doesn't bother me. I like the hum. I like the cool, recycled air of the server room. But tonight, the hum stopped. It wasn't a power outage. The lights were still blazing with that clinical, headache-inducing fluorescent white. It was the servers. One by one, the cooling fans spun down. The hard drives ceased their rhythmic clicking. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. It felt pressurized, like the moment before your ears pop on an airplane. I sat in the control chair, my reflection staring back at me from the black monitors. Just a tired guy in a gray uniform, dark circles under his eyes. Then, the audio console lit up.
This system is designed to pick up cosmic background noise, dead stars colliding, black holes eating light. It's not supposed to pick up local frequencies, but the VU meter, the little needle that measures sound levels, jolted into the red. Thump. It came through the main speakers, a dull, wet sound, like a heavy boot stepping into mud. I checked the inputs. Nothing was connected, no satellites, no auxiliary mics. The input read, source, unknown, local. Thump. Louder this time. Clarity improved. It wasn't mud. It sounded like meat hitting concrete. "Hello?" I said into the room, feeling foolish. "Is anyone on the comms?" The needle on the console danced. A rasping sound filled the room, like sandpaper over dry bone. It wasn't static. It was a pattern. Breathing. I grabbed the manual override key to shut down the audio output. I didn't want to hear it. The breathing was irregular, wet, and labored. It sounded like something large that was struggling to keep its lungs full. I twisted the key. The audio off light flickered green. The breathing didn't stop. In fact, it moved. The sound shifted from the left speaker to the right speaker. The stereo panning was perfect. It created a sonic illusion that whatever was breathing had just walked behind my chair. I spun around, flashlight in hand, sweeping the beam across the rows of silent black server racks. "Who's there?" I screamed. My voice cracked. The room was empty, just the dust motes dancing in the beam of light. But then, the sound changed again. The breathing stopped, replaced by a low, guttural humming. It was a melody, a nursery rhyme. Ring around the rosy. My blood turned to ice. I knew that hum. It wasn't a recording. It was my hum. I hum that tune when I'm nervous. I was humming it under my breath 20 minutes ago when the servers died. The speakers were playing me back to myself. but the pitch was shifted down, distorted, made to sound demonic.
I scrambled to the door, grabbing the handle. Locked. The electronic mag lock was dead, likely killed by whatever killed the servers. I was sealed in a soundproof box with the speakers. I ran back to the console. I had to kill the power. I reached under the desk and ripped the thick power cables out of the wall sockets. Sparks showered down. The LEDs on the console died. The room plunged into semi-darkness, lit only by the emergency exit sign. Total silence. I slumped against the desk, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. It's over, I called myself. Just a glitch, a feedback loop. Then, from the dead, unpowered speaker cone directly in front of my face, a whisper emerged. It didn't need electricity. It didn't need a signal. Aris. It knew my name. Aris, open the door. I covered my ears. No, you're not real. This is hallucinations, carbon monoxide, something. Aris, look at the glass. The control room was separated from the main server floor by a large pane of soundproof observation glass. I didn't want to look. Every instinct in my primate brain screamed at me to keep my eyes shut. I looked.
The emergency lights in the server room flickered. Standing in the middle of the aisle between Rack 4 and Rack 5 was a figure. It was wearing my uniform. It was the same height as me. But where its face should have been, there was nothing but smooth, pale skin. No eyes, no nose, just a mouth. A massive, vertical mouth that split the face from forehead to chin. And it was screaming. But the scream wasn't coming from the figure. The figure was silent. The scream was coming from inside the control room. It was coming from the dead speakers, vibrating the desk, rattling my teeth. The figure raised a hand and pointed. Not at me. It pointed at the console in front of me. I looked down. The black screen of the dead monitor flickered to life, powered by something impossible. Text began to scroll, green and jagged. Recording started 2 minutes ago. It began to play a video file. It was a camera feed of the room I was currently in. I watched myself on the screen. I saw myself rip the cords out of the wall. I saw myself slump against the desk. Then on the screen, I saw something I hadn't felt. While I was huddled on the floor, a shadow had detached itself from the ceiling. On the screen, the shadow lowered itself slowly, draping over my shoulders like a cape. I watched the screen in horror as the shadow on the video leaned close to the ear of the me on the screen. I felt a cold breath on the back of my actual neck. The video on the screen was lagging by 3 seconds. I watched the shadow on the screen whisper. 3 seconds later, I heard it in my ear. Real, physical, cold. I'm not in the server room, Aris. That's just a reflection. I slowly turned my head around. The space behind my chair wasn't empty anymore.
I scrambled backward, knocking the chair over. The thing standing there didn't have a face, only that vertical, toothless mouth. As I screamed, the creature didn't attack. It just leaned into the microphone on the desk, the microphone that was unplugged. It whispered one final thing, and its voice boomed through the entire facility, shattering the observation glass. End of transmission.
This audio log was found on a solid-state drive melted into the floor of the Nevada listening post. The facility was found empty, locked from the inside. Aris's body was never found,
but his vocal prints have recently been detected in background static on phone calls worldwide.